Friendly's is one of America's most beloved brands, but it almost didn't make it out of its infancy after the founders closed down the chain and went off to war. Friendly Ice Cream was founded by brothers Presley and Curtis Blake in Springfield, Massachusetts in 1935. The Great Depression was still the nation's grim reality at the time, but with a $547 loan from their parents, 20-year-old Presley and 18-year-old Curtis Blake opened their ice cream business.
The reason that we got into this is because we couldn't get a job.
They called it Friendly so that customers would know that welcoming service accompanied the ice cream. The Blakes' business model was simple. One brother would make the ice cream while the other served customers. Neighboring drugstores and soda shops sold 2 scoops or a double-dip ice cream cone for a dime back then. The Blakes sold them for a nickel. When Friendly Ice Cream opened its doors on a summer evening in 1935, the line was about 100 feet long. They stayed open until midnight and sold 552 cones for a takeaway of $27.60. Friendly Ice Cream quickly became a popular spot in Springfield. Despite his youth, Presley Blake was a shrewd businessman who was all for efficiency and fiercely anti-debt. For the first 5 years, the Blake brothers shared a used 1928 Ford Model A and rarely took time off. When customers began suggesting that Friendly sell food as well as ice cream, the Blakes listened. With the original Springfield location turning a profit, Presley and Curtis Blake opened a second Friendly Ice Cream in 1940 in West Springfield, Massachusetts. In tandem with the new location, the Blakes broadened Friendly Ice Cream's menu to include sandwiches such as the patty melt and the grilled cheese, both of which are still on the menu today. With 2 locations and more variety, Friendly Ice Cream was on track to become a profitable chain. And then, World War II changed everything. In 1943, 2 years after the United States entered World War II, Friendly Ice Cream closed up entirely. The Blakes posted a sign on the shop's windows saying Friendly Ice Cream would reopen when America won the war. To help make that a reality, Curtis Blake joined the military, and Presley Blake worked with Westinghouse Corp. With the war's end in 1945, Friendly returned, adding ice cream delivery trucks a year later to cater to the booming new suburban market. Shopping plazas became more widespread, and Friendly Ice Cream was the perfect fit. Between 1945 and 1952, the chain grew by 2 locations per year. Friendly Ice Cream's immediate post-war success invigorated its founders to enact a robust expansion plan. Curtis Blake planned and oversaw the building of every new Friendly location, while Presley Blake took the lead on the financial side, and they kept everything in the family. When the Blakes led Friendly, not a single location was franchised out. In the early 1950s, the Blakes opened a manufacturing plant where all of the ice cream, syrups, sundae toppings, and sandwich ingredients used at Friendly Ice Cream establishments were processed. In 1960, Friendly Ice Cream's headquarters in the plant moved to Wilbraham, Massachusetts, and expansion continued. By 1974, the chain had 500 units to its name and a second manufacturing plant in Troy, Ohio. By 1979, Friendly Ice Cream was thriving, so much so that Hershey was interested in acquiring the company. After 44 years in the biz, the brothers sold to Hershey to the tune of $162 million. Presley Blake was 65 when Friendly was sold. Curtis Blake was 63. By then, there were roughly 600 Friendly Ice Cream locations for Hershey to assume. Hershey embraced the new ownership. Its legendary candies became standard fare in Friendly Sundays, something fans of the chain have come to count on. Hershey's capital also helped the restaurant to grow at a quicker pace than ever, and the new owners also took to renovating some of the older Friendly locations. It was an auspicious new chapter. Under new ownership, Friendly continued to expand its reaches as a family-oriented chain. Yet Friendly didn't prosper for long under the Hershey banner. Cracks began to show, perhaps for the first time, in Friendly's business operations. Despite new locations continuing to open, in the late 1980s, profits fell for the first time in the restaurant's history. In 1988, Hershey decided that ownership of the restaurant chain detracted from the brand's focus on the sweets and snacks segment. Friendly was sold to Tennessee Restaurant Company, or TRC, for approximately $375 million. TRC quickly made changes. The restaurant name was changed to Friendly's, and that was just the beginning of some serious streamlining. Over 100 Friendly's locations were slated for closure, the majority in Florida, Ohio, and Virginia. Business operations were still going strong in Friendly's home base of New England, though, for the time being. Through TRC, Friendly's new owner was Donald N. Smith, a businessman whose expertise was reviving tired restaurant chains. Smith understood that Friendly's early capitalization on prepackaged ice cream, which was a smooth operation thanks to the manufacturing plant Friendly's had been running since the 1950s, was helping the chain stand out. Hershey tested the waters of putting more Friendly ice cream novelties in grocery stores, but Smith wanted to expand the supermarket market, and in 1989, that's exactly what Friendly's did. The full-scale launch into the frozen food aisle included more than just half-gallon gallons of Friendly's ice cream. Pre-made sundaes, ice cream cakes, and inventive treats like the Jubilee Roll were featured prominently in grocery store freezers all over the East Coast. Friendly's was also able to effectively keep up with frozen treat trends. As consumer demand for lower-fat ice cream and frozen yogurt grew, Friendly's produced and sold those items. Even as the restaurant itself waned in popularity, Friendly's ice cream remained a reliable retail item for the brand. Most of Smith's rebranding efforts, however, didn't pay off. In 1992, Consumer Reports placed Friendly's last amongst 14 family restaurant chains, noting that customers who were surveyed expressed disappointment in Friendly's food quality, dining atmosphere, and service. In response, restaurants continued to open, existing ones were renovated, and upscale menu additions were introduced. Profits slowly ticked up, but so did the company's debt. In 1997, Friendly's went public on the stock market, a move TRC hoped would ease the mounting debt. Friendly's also began franchising in 1988. Co-founder Daly Blake had been keeping tabs on Friendly's from a distance and was seething with anger over how Smith and TRC were running the venture he still referred to as his baby. Though he was in his late 80s, Blake bought $2 million in Friendly's stock and became the company's largest shareholder. He then sued Smith, claiming that his flagrant personal use of the corporate jet and considerable stake in another restaurant company were against the best interests of Friendly's shareholders. A bitter legal battle was waged over the course of several years, ultimately forcing TRC to sell to Sun Capital in 2007 for $337.2 million. When Sun Capital affiliate Freeze Operations Holding Corp. Acquired Friendly's in 2007, it appointed John McGuire as the new CEO and took the company private to deal with Friendly's financial dramas. McGuire quickly realized that Friendly's staunchly retro stance was damaging their image. He decided it was time to start closing units and selling off real estate. Friendly's also attempted to revamp their menu with more modern dining options.
I'm John McGuire, CEO of Friendly's. Like you, I grew up with Friendly's, and I'm happy to say we're back with a new menu.
But those efforts were undercut by their outdated locations. In October 2011, Friendly's filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, blaming the recession and the rising cost of cream. A total of 424 restaurants stayed open while the company worked through financial restructuring. A key factor in Friendly's slow and steady growth in the mid-20th century was its co-founders' insistence that Friendly's produced and owned all aspects of the business, from the restaurant buildings to the plants that manufactured the ice cream to the ice cream itself. So when Friendly's sold its ice cream to dairy manufacturer Dean Foods in 2016, it truly felt like the end of an era. Dean Foods, based in Dallas, Texas, was the largest dairy processor in the U.S. at the time of the sale. The company purchased all of Friendly's manufacturing and retail operations for $155 million in cash. When Dean Foods took over, Friendly's ice cream sales were up 105%. Not too shabby for a company that had filed for bankruptcy just 5 years earlier. Dean Foods agreed to operate out of Friendly's existing ice cream manufacturing facilities and retain the employees who worked there. By offloading the ice cream's manufacturing and retail duties to Dean Foods, Friendly's could continue to focus on improving its restaurants. About 100 units closed during the bankruptcy, leaving Friendly's with 254 locations as of September 2016. Friendly's financial well-being had been shaky for decades when COVID-19 wreaked irreparable havoc on the global restaurant industry. The chain did its best, but in November 2020, it filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy for a second time. Friendly's was down to 130 restaurants at the time of the filing, and over the next 2 years would be forced to close an additional 23 locations. At the same time, Dean Foods, the company making the ice cream, also went bankrupt.
The parent company of the Friendly's ice cream plant in Wilbraham has declared bankruptcy. Dean Foods announced plans to sell all of its assets.
Worsening the situation was the depressing deal Friendly's made to be acquired by Amici Partners Group, LLC, an affiliate of Brix Holdings, for just $2 million. The low price was to account for Friendly's huge debts. Lenders were willing to waive $88 million in secured debt in order to close the deal in January 2021. Friendly's co-founder Daly Blake lived to see the sad decline of his creation, passing away at the age of 106, just 1 month after Friendly's was sold. Curtis Blake was spared the news. He had passed away in 2019 at age 102. With Friendly's future on the ropes, new owners Brix Holdings planned for yet another brand refresh. In 2022, the plan was to play upon Friendly's legacy as a classic American eatery while sprucing up the menu with foods that would appeal to a younger crowd. That meant shrinking Friendly's new menu from 8 pages to 2, tossing out tired items, and introducing playful picks like the Doritos Cool Ranch chopped cheeseburger along with new ice cream flavors.
Friendly's has introduced the limited edition flavor Nor'easter Pothole.
A rewards program was launched, as were company-wide events like a Fribble giveaway. Some of the new foods came off as gimmicky, but at least Friendly's was trying to keep it current. It even tapped the Jonas Brothers to each design their own limited edition Friendly's sundaes in honor of the trio's 2023 World Tour. In April 2024, Friendly's announced that a new late-night value menu would be offered in all of its restaurants, giving the chain a fighting chance to compete in the after-hours fast food market. It's been a bumpy ride for Friendly's, but if the recent past is any indicator of how the future will go, Resurgence is in the air. Yes, there were more closures in 2024, which hit the Northeast, once home to Friendly's steadiest customer base. Yet as one Friendly's door closes, another opens, this time in Florida, where fresh approaches are keeping hope alive. A new Friendly's that opened in Orlando, Florida, features a more open ice cream counter, complete with a Fribble wall where kids can customize milkshakes to their heart's content. Sundae toppings are displayed in clear jars, like they were in Friendly's ice cream window days, and the location is just minutes away from Walt Disney World. Friendly's current CEO, Sharif Mityas, is optimistic that the more interactive space will breathe new life into the 89-year-old brand. Friendly's is still leaning into gimmicky menu items, like an ice cream sundae surrounded by a wreath of French fries, as the combination of sweet and salty reportedly did well in testing. But the menu hasn't been totally overrun by fads. Overall, Friendly's is more mindful about growing slowly but surely, a business practice the company's founders perfected all those decades ago. Just over 100 Friendly's stores remain in business. About 20% have undergone a recent remodel, with the remaining locations expected to get their renovations over the next year. Profitability, not expansion, is the primary objective for Friendly's moving forward. Here's hoping they are able to save this home of classic Americana.